Opinions Playhouse is on the air. Turn the volume up. We've got lots to share. Listen in your car or your underwear. Frank Opinions on the air. So join.
I have a school joke for you. I'm Frank Opinion, by the way, and you have found the Frank Opinion Joke Podcast. Welcome aboard. AOCreatives.com. I'd like to thank those folks for getting the word out and helping me sort of market this thing. And AO Creatives, again at AOCreatives.com, can also help you not only with your podcast, but websites as well. What I've decided to do with every joke, if I have anything that I can share with you in the way of a story, a true story for the most part, well, they're all true, to lead into the joke. In this particular case, it's about a classroom of, like middle schoolers. When I hated school, let me just throw that out there. My wife hates it when I say that in front of kids. Well, don't tell them that, then they'll hate school. No, they won't. They're going to hate it anyway, or they're not because I told them I hated school, but I did. I don't think you like school when you're not popular, when you're not on a team, baseball, football, basketball, when you're not a member of the elite clique of kids who all sit together at the lunchroom, the cool kids, we're not on the yearbook staff, on and on and on. That was me. I hated school. I hated almost every day of school. I was small. When I entered my junior year in high school, I was 5'5". By the time I graduated 2 years later, I was 6 feet tall. Whoa! Woohoo! Why couldn't I have been 6 feet tall when I was a junior? I got picked on a lot less. I was the youngest in the class, the smallest in the class. I got picked on a lot. So I didn't like school. I went to school. Most of my school life was spent in Tennessee, in a, hillbilly, nothing little sort of town. And let me give you an example of how backwoods this school was. A couple of the kids in my class, and I'm talking now 5th, 6th grade, didn't wear shoes to school. They went to school barefoot. I don't know if it was because they couldn't afford them or they just had tough feet, because there's a kid running around down in Tennessee, their feet got really tough. But other kids would we had one kid who would bring beer to school.
That is absurd.
And put it in like a lunchbox thermos. But the teacher found out and knew it. And so she'd check his thermos to see if he had beer in it. It was the 6th grade. I had, it was not uncommon for the teacher to walk back and, okay, give me the cigarettes.
Hey, smoke up, Johnny.
A 6th grader, he had cigarettes in his pocket, like a tough guy. And we had one kid, and his name was Sammy, 6th grade, true story. My kids love this story. Sammy was 18 years old, and he was in my 6th grade class.
That doesn't make sense.
And I'll never forget the day that the teacher got up and said, well, everybody, let's give Sammy a big round of applause and wish him well. This will be his last day. He's joined the Marine Corps. 6th grade. And Sammy, we never saw him again, went off to the Marine Corps. And I got all kinds of school stories about, I don't know why I just didn't like school. I don't know that I would have liked school no matter whether it had been in a Tennessee small town school or on bigger. I don't know. I just don't think I was cut out much for school. So I tried not to make my kids hate school. 2 of my kids, they didn't mind school, I don't think. Went to college. The third one was like me. He said, I just don't like school. I said, okay, I don't have a problem with that. No big deal. You're not going to go to college? I don't care. I don't have a college degree. I did okay. Most of the people that I know who have done well don't have college degrees. I also have a thing about that, about college. Overrated for the most part. Now, if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, I get it. You're going to need to go to college. But there are thousands of jobs, good jobs, that don't require a college degree. So don't go crazy if you can't afford to go to college or you don't want to go to, don't be upset about it. Just find something you like to do. Do it well. That's the key. Just do it well. Do it better than most other people do it. You'll be fine. But try to make, you know what I think about, I know this has led now into getting a job, but it all starts with school. And if you, here, I think there are three parts to a job. There's what you do, meaning, do you like it? Do you like what you do? That's one, that's important, that you like going to work. Two, do you get paid well? That's important. Three, the least important, I think, is where do you live to do that job? Does the job mean you're going to have to move to Seattle and you hate Seattle? Okay, but if you get two of the three, if you make really good money and you love what you do, you'll put up with Seattle. I don't mean to pick on Seattle, but it rains a lot there, and I don't like raining all the time. So if you get two of the three, I think you're pretty lucky. Very few people get all three. Very few people can say, well, I live in Hawaii, and I make a fortune, and I love what I do. Wow, good for you. That's pretty rare. You're probably not going to get all three. But to get all three doesn't mean you have to go to college. You know, I have a daughter who went to college, and I asked her one time, I said, by the way, I don't even know, what is your major? What is your degree in? She said, corporate communications. I said, what does that mean? She goes, I don't know. Certainly can't hurt you to go to college. I'm sure you'll learn something, but it's not necessary for most people, for most jobs. Not necessary. So my time in school, I'm trying to think, did I ever have, oh, okay. I do have one part of my school life that I enjoyed, and it was at the very end, after I'd been unpopular, after I hated going to school every day, after I'd been made fun of. Then at the end, in my senior year, let me start with this. Every year there was a senior play. I don't know if they still have this or not, but it was a play put on the stage with props by usually the seniors. It's called the senior play. And I only had two friends in school. I'm standing by one of them, and on the bulletin board, it says auditions for the senior play. See, Miss whatever her name was. And there was a drama class, and almost always the parts in the play would go, especially the leading parts, went to the kids in drama class. I didn't take drama. My buddy said, hey, why don't you try out for that play? I said, I'm not in drama class. He goes, try it anyway. I think you can do it. I go in and I audition. Audition meaning the drama teacher, first of all, said, who are you? And I told her, she said, well, you're not in my drama class. I said, no, but is it limited only to drama students? She goes, no, anybody can audition. I said, well, I like to audition. So she gives me a part to read that's not the lead, it's just a bit part. And I read it, and she said, wow. She said, here, read this. And she gives me the lead character, part of his script. And I read it. And she said, well, okay, thank you. Now, a couple days later, they post on the board who got what parts. There's my name as I got the lead. Whoa. My character's name was George. I couldn't believe it. I studied, memorized, and I pulled it off, and I think I did a fantastic job. I must have, or I wouldn't have got the rave reviews from the school paper and from the drama teacher. You should have been taking drama. Boom, boom, boom. So that part of my school I actually enjoyed, because for a moment I was somebody. Not the captain of the basketball team, where every day they're a big deal. Not the head of the yearbook staff, not the president of the student council, but for a moment, for a couple of weeks, where we had to put on that play, a couple times for the school, a couple times for parents, I felt like I was somebody because I had the lead in the school play. So that was a part of school I liked. The other things I liked really had nothing to do with school. They would have been the after prom picnic. You go to the prom on Saturday night, and then we got on a couple of buses and went to a state park the next day and took a blanket, and she brought a picnic lunch. We just made out on the blanket in the park. It was great.
Awesome.
It had nothing to do really with school, except that it was an offshoot of school, was the prom. And the prom, that's a whole other subject. Maybe we'll have to talk about that sometime. I never took my wife to the prom, and she does not let me forget it. Because I took 2 other girls, and the senior prom, I was actually still seeing her, but I took another chick. So that's another story for another time. So this joke is about a classroom, middle schoolers. And in this particular class, the teacher had a special lesson, if you would, a special way of getting them to study. And so toward the end of the year, when the weather started turning nice outside, everybody wanted to get out of school, can't wait till 3 o'clock or whatever, can't wait for summer. She had a really brilliant idea. She gave them some work to study, and then she was going to test them on it on a Friday. And so Friday morning, she said, I'm going to ask all of you a few questions. The first person that can answer the question correctly gets to leave and go home for the rest of the day. It's Friday. You'll get an extra long weekend. She said, now it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. Whoever answers this question or these questions correctly, boom, off you go. Call your mom, tell her to come pick you up, or walk home, or whatever you do, but you don't have to stay the rest of the day. Oh, man, what a great idea. It's a beautiful day. So she gets up and says, here's the first question. Remember, the first of you that can answer it correctly, see you Monday, because you are out of here for the rest of the day. So she says, what president of the United States was assassinated in 1963? And this kid raises his hand and says, President John F. Kennedy. She says, correct, see you Monday. He grabs his books, he's out of there. Now, the next question she asks is, who was the very first president of the United States? Kid raised his hand right away. George Washington. She said, that's correct. Get your books. Get out. See you Monday. Have a great weekend. Now, Dirty Ernie is in this class. He's a kid that is a problem. And he's not real smart, so he couldn't answer those questions, but he has a plan. Dirty Ernie's dad played racquetball. So Dirty Ernie, knowing this thing was going to take place Friday, grabbed a couple of his dad's racquet balls. They were black rubber balls, and he took them to school with him that day. And then when the teacher decides to ask, she's ready to ask the third question, and just as she's ready to ask it, Dirty Ernie rolls those black rubber balls down toward her desk, and they hit her on the foot. She looks down and sees them, and she looks up at the class. She says, okay, who's the comedian with the black balls? Dirty Ernie says, Chris Rock, see you Monday.